If you can look past the bugs, as difficult as that is, you'll find an open world that completely lacks purpose. There's a main quest, but as I said, it's about as inviting as the anus of Glenn Martin's dog. There's quests that are about as interesting as grocery shopping on the side, and an absence of characters and real world building that just makes it feel like I Am Legend rather than a Fallout game. You know, a lot of people compare this game to No Man's Sky, but there are so many problems with that comparison. I mean, people actually wanted No Man's Sky. I kid, of course, people wanted an online Fallout, but I wouldn't compare the two. Instead, I'd compare this to Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. Seriously, if you want an online experience of that game, the game where everyone's gone because the world ended and all that you have is their final recordings on tape to listen to, this is the game for you. Specifically you, and no one else. It's not that there isn't anything in the world that's mildly interesting or could potentially be interesting, but the few things that you find wouldn't really be anything special in a competent Fallout game. And the few things that actually impressed me, like the intact pre-war shopping mall, just made me wish that was in a real Fallout game instead of this shit. This goes for the unique weapons and enemies, which I quite like in concept at least. There's a guitar sword, and that's got a pretty cool design. And there are several old-timey War of Independence weapons as well, and a number of new creatures that provide a different sort of challenge, such as the teleporting Mothman and the versatile Wendigo. I think I actually said that right for once. The only one of these things that I can't fucking stand are the Scorched Beasts. Oh, fuck the Scorched Beasts. I hate these things. I hate them so fucking much. On a level that I didn't even know I had. I didn't know that I had this level of hate. Like, my hatred for these things goes deeper than that of the Raving Rabbids. No! I'm serious, these fucking things can fuck right off. Imagine a dragon from Skyrim. A dragon that never lands on the ground and takes 4 times as much damage as a dragon from Skyrim. It has an endless recharge on all of its attacks, which includes a sonic wave that can shatter your armor like it's tissue paper, and shrugs off most of the damage you do to it. Now imagine that it can also fart radioactive clouds that hurt you through proxy, fly through walls, and none of these attacks have any visible cooldown timers or anything to give it balance. Imagine now that it brought 3 of its buddies along and attacked you the second that you spawn into the game. Yes, this has happened multiple times, and as it happens, it just got more and more tempting to pull the game out my PS4 and smash it with a fucking spatula. How is this acceptable? Is this some sort of shit asset flip on Steam? No, actually, no. Even shit asset flips on Steam aren't capable of this level of incompetence. Nerf these fucking things. Or at least get rid of them, because they're fucking shit to begin with. A kid I work with summed them up perfectly by saying they're basically god tier cliff racers. Those fucking annoying bat creatures from Morrowind that annoyed the piss out of starting players. They're that, but with the power of a dragon from Skyrim. Fuck these things. There are also a number of new mechanics added into this game, newly introduced since Fallout 4. Remember weapon degradation? It's back! Yay! Seriously, I thought we were over this weapon degradation bullshit by now. I thought that maybe it could just be a relic of the late 2000s that nobody bothered with again. Because it made pre-Skyrim such a pain in the arse. I remember at one point I did a Fallout 3 playthrough where all I did was make money to pay to have my gun fixed. And it added absolutely nothing to that playthrough. It took everything away from it because it was just so boring, and from the game itself. The only examples that are acceptable to me, and bear in mind I said acceptable and not good, are RimWorld, where the weapons degrade over literal in-game years, and that's usually due to the environment that they're kept in. Like a rifle left out in the rain to go rusty is obviously going to break a lot faster than one kept in a nice snug little armory. The other is Red Dead Redemption 2, which is probably a bit more realistic and less annoying actually, as you have to clean and maintain your weapon as you do in real life. Of course, in real life, you have to do more than pour some oil on a cloth and give the gun a good rub, but it's not too bad, and it makes sense in terms of the realism angle, as cleaning a gun is an important part of gun ownership, and not doing it will only slightly decrease its stats at worst. However, Bethesda's idea of weapon degradation is to have the weapon just explode or vanish from your hands after so many uses. They could at least make it so that you'd have to fuck around with it whilst reloading. Fallout 3 and New Vegas did this, but no, that's too much work. They just vanish now, mid-use. They also added a food and drink meter for the survival experience. You know, it's that realistic survival experience of starving to near death because you haven't eaten a packet of crisps in 2 hours. Again, Red Dead did this a lot better, as it only really mattered in the case that you were overweight or underweight as a result of how much you ate and drank. And this only had a slight impact on stats, and even had some slight benefits as well. You can also keep on top of this stuff by simply playing the game, whereas Fallout 76 creates a scenario where playing the game makes it harder to keep on top of this shit. Then there's weight, my favourite part of the game. Believe it or not, the vast majority of the things that I've talked about do not hurt the game as much as this aspect of it. Even the Scorched Beasts aren't as bad as this. Like, if it weren't for the fact that you had this problem, they would be pretty avoidable. But a lot of players had to carry everything on their person instead of being able to stash it away like in previous games. You do get a stash, but initially it was only 400 WG, which is pretty much what a high level character can carry on their person. A low level character with really low strength, we're talking about 120 WG. Maybe a bit more depending on what your special stats are, but basically the max you can get, as far as I'm aware, is around 800 in both stashes, which is pathetic. Now, they have increased this to around 600 in your, loot box back at your base, and I admit this has made the issue a bit more bearable, but in the long run, I imagine I'll be back to square one in a few weeks, especially if they release DLCs or new content for the game, and therefore require you to stash new weapons and outfits. It also doesn't help now that weapons and items weigh more than ever. Stim packs weigh, ammo weighs, items that previously didn't weigh anything now do weigh something. And as a result, you're more likely to get over encumbered than ever before. Even fucking bobby pins weigh something. Yeah, apparently 60 bobby pins. Which anyone who's ever seen a bobby pin before, you know it doesn't weigh a bloody thing, right? If you have 60 of them, it weighs as much as a 50 caliber bullet. How the fuck does that make any sense? This also means that missiles and mini nukes, fusion cores as well, take up a fuck ton of inventory space. so all your heavy hitters just drag you down to your knees. They take around 3 WG per fusion core, 3 per missile, and 6 per mini nuke, as well as the 20 WG that a fucking fat man would probably weigh, and the 10 WG that power armor probably weighs, because you have to carry that around now. Owning one of each knocks 10 off your 400 stash, or 600, but still, and it really fucking bogged you down. It's not like you can function without stim packs and power armor in the game, especially given that Scorch Beasts can roam anywhere, and established earlier, are really fucking annoying to deal with. Not to mention that if you get over encumbered in both your stash and your pack, then good luck sorting that mess out, as it's like a fox, chicken and worm puzzle designed by the fucking Manson family. All of these additions are so unnecessary and just make a worse overall experience. Not only are a lot of them dated attitudes to the concepts, but it was just so much better when they weren't included back in Fallout 4. The argument of realism is shattered when you realise that guns don't just vanish from your hands in real life after firing them 125 times, and it would be far more realistic for the same gun to be in service for the best part of 50 years, as there have been cases of people having fully working World War II service weapons, than there have been people whose guns have miraculously vanished in their hands. I don't think I've ever read an article where that's happened before, except maybe the Daily Star. In truth, it really feels like having to maintain your character and equipment. No, maintain isn't the right word. Babysit. You have to babysit these things. Rather than surviving and enjoying the world, rather than finding new adventures or conquering new lands, you're just mulling over the same territory over and over in an effort to not die, and it makes the game lacking in an experience of any kind. It's like fucking Purgatory the video game. Not to mention either that the building eats up most of your time as well. Can we just not have this in the next Fallout? Yeah, the building gimmick was kinda cool in 4, but Bethesda's engine is not good enough to house such a gimmick, and it's certainly not good enough to last a player in the endgame sandbox. My save file in Fallout 4 is virtually unplayable because I simply played the game so much that it's just too much for the game to handle. I have so many settlements, so many settlers, and I've expanded so far and wide that the game can't handle what I've done to it, and it just glitches and eventually crashes. I mean, I got to a point where there was a triangle in the top left hand corner of the map where you could walk around naked and unarmed and were completely safe, and the engine is such a shambles that it can't handle such change to the landscape. Oh, speaking of the engine,